McGill is honored today to celebrate the achievements of Dr. Agnes Kalibata. I asked Professor Anya Geitman, Dean of the Faculty of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, to present our distinguished guest so that she may have conferred upon her the highest recognition that it is within the power of this university to grant. And I asked Dr. Kalibata to join me at center stage for the presentation of the honorary degree. Dean Geitman.
First, welcome to all of you at McDonald campus. Mr. Chancellor, bringing vision and steady drive to the growth of African agriculture at the center of the continent's economic and social development, Dr. Agnes Kalibata has distinguished herself as an agricultural scientist, policymaker, innovative thinker, and public and thought leader. Agnes Kalibata began her education in Uganda, where she earned her master's degree in crop science from McGill University. This was followed by a doctorate in entomology at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. In 2005, Agnes Kalibata returned to her homeland of Rwanda, where she led the turnaround of a challenged World Bank agriculture program to successfully deliver impact to Rwandan farmers. She went on to serve as permanent secretary and then Rwanda's Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources from mid-2006 until 2014, implementing a science-based approach to agriculture policy and practice that greatly increased efficiency and productivity that contributed to Rwanda being a largely food-secure nation. She's widely heralded as one of the most successful agriculture ministers in sub-Saharan Africa. Agnes Kalibata briefly served as the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Institutional Advancement at the University of Rwanda before being called to serve continentally as the President of the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, or AGRA, in 2014. In this role, she drives Africa's agricultural agenda, sharing the lessons she learned as a minister. AGRA is an alliance led by African experts with roots in farming communities whose goal is to use its expertise to catalyze increased incomes and improved food security for 30 million farming households in 11 African countries by 2021. An ambition to scale the lessons learned to the entire continent. As president of AGRA, Agnes Kalibata leads a team of over 200 agricultural specialists across the continent, working to strengthen institutions, systems, and tools to support Africa's agriculture. These include access to high-yielding seeds, better soil health, support to farmer organizations, strengthening agricultural policy environments, linking farmers to markets, and inclusive finance. Agnes Kalibata est membre de nombreux conseils nationaux et internationaux d'envergure, notamment la Commission mondiale pour l'adaptation, le projet Nouvelle économie climatique, les organismes Africa Risk Capacity et Biodiversity International, le Global Agenda Council sur les systèmes alimentaires du Forum économique mondial et le panel Malabo Montpellier, qui réunit des experts en agriculture et en sécurité alimentaire. In 2012, Dr. Kalibata was awarded the Yara Prize, now the Africa Food Prize, the preeminent award recognizing an outstanding individual or institution that is leading the effort to change the reality of farming in Africa. In April 2019, she received the U.S. National Academy of Sciences Public Welfare Medal, the Academy's most prestigious award for her work to drive Africa's agricultural transformation through modern science and effective policy. Her efforts are considered to have been instrumental in lifting more than 1 million Rwandans out of poverty, and her leadership and partnerships across the continent and the world continue to pave the way for millions more African farmers and Africans working in agribusiness. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Agnes Kalibata so that you may confer upon her the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
It's now my pleasure to ask McGill's most recent graduate, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, to address convocation. Dr. Kalibata. Excuse me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chancellor, sir. I'll try and respect all the three things you talked about: the humor, the personal story, and the advice. But let me start by recognizing yourself, Mr. Chancellor, the board's chair, Madam Principal, and members of the platform here, and parents that are here today. I'm a parent too, so I really understand what you're going through today, seeing your kids, your children graduating today. Not kids, I'm sorry. But I'm also extremely proud and privileged. I feel very privileged and honored to be receiving an honorary degree from a university, a renowned university like McGill University. I mean, never in a million years would I have dreamt that I'm worth of that honor. So I'm really, really privileged, and I thank you all that thought that I was worth of that honor. I want to say that I'm going to say my personal story, not to bore you, but to see if you can draw any inspiration from what I did now that you're facing and walking into the world that we are in today. I started out in Uganda, like they said, like the dean, right? Dean? That's the title. Yes, sorry, I'm sorry. Like the dean said, but there is a reason I was going to school in Rwanda as opposed in Uganda as opposed to Rwanda. It's because my family, since I was born, lived in a refugee dome. I was born when my family were refugees there. But that's besides the point. I had a decent living back then. It was possible, even as refugees, to have a decent living. But my family were smallholders. They grew food on, smallholders means that they grow food on basically 2 to 5 hectares. You as experts in agriculture, if you have studied a little bit of African agriculture, 70% of African farmers grow food on those types of land. But what I remember the most is the energy with which my father brought to his farming. He was so committed to ensure that none of us would ever farm. Here in Canada, farming is a big business, so you would think that people are trying to farm because it's a business. In Africa, farming is seen as a poverty trap because people farm and farm, but they don't get out of poverty. So that is the exciting part of being here today, being part of an institution that puts research and science at the forefront. Because you know what? I see my job today as an opportunity and an honor to be able to be part of changing how the families I grew up with farm. Having better access to good seeds, which you all know now, which in fact the rest of the world now takes for granted. For the last 50 years, most people have been using improved seed. Many people in Africa haven't seen improved seed up to today. And improved seed means you can move for the same energy, for the same piece of land, you can produce 5 times more. So the reason I say I feel privileged is because I have access to people like you, I have access to institutions like this, and I have access to the knowledge of where we can find those seeds and get them to our farmers. But I also have huge networks that I work with to be able to do that. So when I became minister in Rwanda, that was my #1 priority. How do I use what I know to move millions of people, to reach millions of people with what the rest of the world actually has? So I didn't do any rocket science. It was just about getting good seeds, good fertilizers to massive amounts of people. And you know what? Politics is good in a way. It helps you do that. I was a policymaker, so I could determine how things get done and at what pace. So today, I have to say that working with AGRA gives me an opportunity to see how the rest of the continent is doing, not just about Rwanda. The rest of the continent, a few countries like Ethiopia are reducing poverty so fast, 4%, a rate of 4% per year, because they're investing in agriculture. Again, Rwanda is doing a good job there. Ghana is moving very fast using agriculture, and a number of other countries. There's actually real hope, real optimism. Africa was beginning to move forward with regards to increasing incomes, moving people forward. And of course, now we are talking about climate change. That's why I used the word was beginning to move forward. Because in the last 1 year, in the last few years, we see a lot of climate change now that is significantly and seriously impacting people. In fact, I sometimes think that part of the reason I lost my job as a minister is because I had no control over rain. Because, seriously, because the question was, why aren't we producing like we produced last year? I'm like, but what can I do? So I had set an expectation, and that expectation, starts being eroded by climate change and by rain. But the reality is that erosion is real. Whether it is the ability of farmers to produce food today, whether it is the ability of farmers to use the knowledge they have generated over time. In Africa, people know when rains will start. They will tell you 15th of March, rains will start. That's how I grew up. They will tell you 15th of June, rains will stop. That's not working today. That's completely messed up, and in fact, as you have seen in recent reports by FAO, more people are going to bed hungry today than a few years ago because they've fallen out of the food security segment because of recurrent droughts, because of the cyclones you've seen, and because of everything that is happening. So climate change is here and is real. The good news is, when you talk to a community like Canada, you see that people in Canada and in many parts of the world, people actually do understand and believe that we need to be doing something about this. And young people even believe that even more. So I'm really, really excited that I'm talking to people who do understand where we are at. In fact, to conclude on the advice bit of the speech, you have a huge responsibility. So I don't have much more advice. I'm not going to dwell on the advice bit, but I'm going to define to you the world as you're entering it today. You have a huge responsibility because we have messed up the world. We said it at the beginning. We actually have messed up the world. And you're going to have to mop up this. And you know what? It only has to get better. It can't get worse. Because if you lived in Africa where I live, and you see people going hungry because of what is happening in climate change, it can't get worse. We only have to do what we have to do to get it better. So my advice to you is, you have the brains, you have a very good education, you've been part of a great university, you have networks here. The chancellor was reminding you that you need to keep your networks. That's probably one of the biggest advice anybody can give you. You're going to build more, and believe you me, the science world is extremely small. It's a global village. You get out there and you find that everybody knows everybody else. You go, you take advantage of that global village, but you remember that you are inheriting a world that needs help, and being able to use what you have learned, being able to use it to deliver a better world for your children tomorrow. The reason I went into agriculture is specifically that I can help those smallholder farmers, but that I can also help shape the world my children will inherit. You can't be able to deliver anything significant in this world if you don't have a purpose that really binds you to what is happening in the world. My bind comes from the fact that I want a better world for my children. I want a better world for all of you, and I'm sure you want a better world for your children. So as you go forth, just do one thing. Be courageous and be determined. That's the advice part now, right? I haven't done great on the humor, but I hope I'm doing well on the other parts. The advice part is just be courageous. Just remember, every time it gets tough, remember, I grew up in that village in the middle of nowhere. I saw television when I was probably nearly 20. But I'm here talking to you today. Be courageous and be determined. You can actually move mountains. I always look at mountains and feel like when I look at something, I feel all I need is a big knife that helps me chop away. Because everything you take off goes away. It doesn't go back. So you have an opportunity to shape the world your way, and you can shape it much faster because there's lots of technology to use now. So all I can say is I'm extremely happy to be part of this convocation today. I'm going to leave. I have a prepared speech. I'll leave it behind and post it on the internet if you want to read it. But I am, again, very honored, and I wish you the best as you go forward. And as we say in French, my French is extremely limited, but at least I know félicitations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kalibata. Your remarks today, and indeed your entire career, are an inspiration to all of us. And we appreciate your accepting our invitation to become McGill's most recent graduate. We'll now proceed with the conferral of academic degrees. Professor Christopher Manfredi, Provost and Vice Principal Academic, will